This is Load Bearing Leadership, a podcast about responsibility, pressure, and what leadership must hold to endure. This isn't a show about motivation, productivity, or leadership hacks. It's a thinking space for leaders carrying real consequence, where decisions have weight and systems have to hold. I'm Ric Marks. Let's begin. Endurance is often celebrated in leadership. We praise leaders who keep going, stay standing, and carry on under pressure. Endurance becomes proof of strength. Fatigue becomes evidence of commitment. But endurance is not the same as capacity. Endurance is how long something can be held, and capacity is how well it can be held without deformation. And this episode is about that distinction, because many leadership systems mistake survival for success. Endurance is visible, capacity is structural. You can see someone working late. You can see someone pushing through. You can see someone absorbing pressure without complaint. What you can't see easily is narrowing judgment, reduced optionality, emotional compression, slower recovery after decisions. So organizations reward what they can observe. The leader who doesn't stop, the leader who doesn't falter, the leader who doesn't ask. And over time, endurance becomes the metric, even though it tells us very little about system health. And systems operating at the edge don't fail loudly at first. They fail quietly. Decisions become shorter and risk tolerances change. Perspective narrows. Leaders begin to rely on habit instead of reflection, speed instead of discernment, and certainty instead of curiosity. Now, from the outside, this looks like competence. From the inside, it feels like constriction. And this is what happens when load exceeds capacity. Not suddenly, but persistently. Here's the critical correction. Capacity is not a personality trait. It is not resilience. It is not grit. It is not mental toughness. Capacity is designed. It comes from shared visibility, clear decision boundaries, regulated pace, and recovery built into leadership rhythm. And when capacity is mistaken for toughness, leaders are told to push harder, adapt faster, cope better. But coping is not capacity. It is compensation. And compensation always has a cost. Capacity loss announces itself quietly. Look for signals like shortened conversations, avoidance of complexity, irritation at reasonable questions, and preference for decisiveness over accuracy. These are not character flaws. They are indicators that the system is asking more than it was designed to hold. And when these signals are ignored, endurance becomes the only option left, and endurance eventually runs out. Load-bearing leadership is not about how much pressure you can survive. It's about whether leadership can remain spacious under load. Spacious enough to think clearly, see alternatives, regulate emotion, hold consequence without distortion. This requires leaders to stop asking, how much more can I take? And start asking, what would increase my capacity to hold this well? That shift changes everything. Not because the load disappears, but because leadership stops deforming under it. And if leadership has felt like an endurance test, that's not accidental. Many systems are built to extract resilience rather than build capacity. And load-bearing leadership offers a different standard. Not survival, but sustainability. Not endurance, but integrity under pressure. In the next episode, we'll look at what leaders often do when capacity is exceeded and how control tightens, authority hardens, and why that response feels necessary but costs more than it saves. But for now, the question is simple. Am I enduring this, or am I designed to hold it? Leadership doesn't fail first through incompetence. It fails when the load it carries is no longer visible, shared, or held well. Load-bearing leadership exists to give language to that weight and to design leadership that can endure without breaking people or systems. If this episode stayed with you, let it settle before you move on. We'll continue next time.